We'll just have to deal with the border. Like bit by bit, you're going to get to the point where you have an acceptable streaming experience. But for now, we're just going to have to deal with your.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to stave off the position where you convinced me to buy a dedicated rangefinder camera or something for like $5,000. That all I use it for is a 720p stream.
I think you should get one of those new red cameras, the little box one.
Let's face it, I'm not far off. I probably have to buy whatever camera you're using. What are you, a
GH5, yeah. A spare GH5, nonetheless.
Yeah, I'll probably have to do that so we can match the visual quality.
I think it's worth it.
How much do they cost?
About $1,000. It's not really.
We are trending.
Yeah, it's about what we make per episode, isn't it? In advertising fees, right?
What have you been playing at the moment?
I was waiting for quite a long time for a re-release of all things of a walking simulator as well, so that you can double cuss me.
You love those.
I do. I absolutely have. I've got less and less tolerance as I've gotten older for the shoot the things to get through the next door part of getting through the next door, and I just like going through the next door. So and getting more of the story. And one of my favourite games of the last few years was one called Observer, which was one of Rutger Hauer's last performances. Where he sort of reprises Roy Batty in a way from Blade Runner. He's like a cyber enhanced cop who goes into people's brains through like a hack port in their head in order to investigate crimes. It is the most brilliant work of art using a game engine that I've ever seen. I played it twice in its original form, and the Redux version they've amped up the graphics another level. It's got RTX now as well, which does look a little bit speckly, but yeah, it's phenomenal. Like the way that they've used Unreal sort of post-production systems and ability to warp reality as you go through it to represent walking through digitally distorted memories is so immersive. And playing it on a projector with the sound cranked up, like I actually end up with like tingles and stuff. You get really quite frightened. It's sort of a horror as well.
What is this game? What is it called?
Sorry?
What is it called?
Observer. The developer's called Bloober, which is the silliest name ever. They've made two games, one called other games, Layers of Fear and Layers of Fear 2, which are also first-person walking simulators. They're both sort of real jump scare horror things. Again, they really twist reality. There's a lot of stuff like you'll walk into a room, you'll turn around and the door's gone, you'll turn around again and something will jump out at you, and then the floor will fall away and you'll be like going down this, falling down a mountainside, and then suddenly it will snap and you'll be in a bedroom. And it's brilliant the way it just screws with reality non-stop. But Observer's just the only thing it falls down with is like most games, like the voice acting jars quite a bit. There's a lot of different styles of performance in it, and some of the scripting's a bit on the nose. But if you can let that pass, which you usually have to in games anyway, it's phenomenally immersive, and just the visual stuff is an absolute tour de force. Like it's just so complicated, their use of reality distortion and post-production and all that sort of thing within the game engine. It's incredible to watch and to immerse yourself in. It's one of those ones you really have to sort of get into it, like dim the lights, get the biggest screen you can, turn it up quite loud, and just let yourself be in that world. And it pulls in a load of stuff from influence wise from all the classic stuff, Ghost in a Shell, Akira, loads of Blade Runner obviously. It's really, really dark thing, quite frightening. Two problems it has are the other one, other than voice acting, is, which occasionally grates, not always, is it's got a couple of levels like the legendary Max Payne walking down the string of blood through the space. Do you remember that one?
Yeah. Well, they do that pretty much every Max Payne game, even now. Like, in the re-release of it as well, they remove you could press a button to skip that level because it was so annoying, like a platforming thing in a game not designed for a platform. Well, they've got a similar thing in Observer where you have to avoid this monster, and it's so trial and error that it actually breaks the story flow quite a lot, which pisses me off. But other than that, it's really, really good. Who is it again that makes Max Payne? I think it's Remedy, isn't it? Yeah, and they have that same aesthetic going through the games always as well, where they had Quantum Break, then Alan Wake. I'm just reading off my phone here right now. Control was the last one, right? And then Max Payne. They have that kind of aesthetic going around the whole thing, but they're very consistent in the way they do that. I really like that in a games company. There's Q Entertainment did Res, and all those kind of music games, but they have that kind of extra dimension to them. That it's just like, that game company is another good one as well. The first party Sony company that did Flower and Flow and Journey. There's something about those games that it transcends the gameplay itself and becomes all about, like you say, immersing yourself in the aesthetic. Yeah. And exactly right. I remember the first time when, I think it was Flower, which, on the face of it, you're just floating a petal around. But it was the first time something like that had gone kind of mainstream on a console. I remember when I was living in Manchester, putting it on the projector and sitting there at night time, and I had like big over-ear headphones on, had like max their volume like at 3 a.m. and I'd been out on a night out and I was just sitting on the floor playing it, immersed in it. And I was like, this is so amazing, it's like a different kind of experience. Those things don't come around very often, and it's such a great thing when you do find them.
Definitely, yeah. If you and you always end up kind of with a dedication to that developer. Like, I follow Bloober's stuff now, and as soon as they were like, you can get a discount on buying this game again, I was like, yes, I'll have your discount, I'll buy it again, I'll play it for a third time with even better graphics. Like that.
Exactly. And you actually feel really like you want to invest in the developer. I remember when I played Bastion for the first time, I loved that game, and I got it for a couple of pounds or something on Xbox Arcade, but I actually went out of my way to go and order from their direct website, just like the gubbins, like that's the second time I said gubbins on this episode. I'm not sure where that's coming from, but it was like it came with an LP and a bandana, a lot of useless stuff. But I just saw them as an independent, their first game, and it probably isn't their first game, but it felt to me that was their first game, and it was amazing. I just wanted to support them, to let them know that I appreciate what they're doing, and here's another 10 quid. Keep on doing it.
Yeah. It's a bit like the independent musicians or whatever, who are used to thinking of them in that sort of way, that you go and buy the vinyl even if you don't play a record player because you want to give them some money, because if you play Spotify they don't get a penny out of it.
Exactly.
So it's it's just another way of paying back. But yeah, they definitely I know what you're saying, that kind of having an aesthetic identity rather than just being random, just making random games, like being an art house as it were, gives people an identity, and it allows you to be a fan, which allows you to emotionally connect on another level, which is going to make you someone who spends more money
in the games world, right? Because that development team, if you think of Remedy, has been around now for 20 years plus easily, and it's definitely not the same people at all. But you have to keep that vein, that art style, running through a team which might be largely, probably 90% turned over at this point. So it's quite impressive they can actually achieve it.
It's actually, there's sort of, that just makes me think, I'm going to ask you what you've been playing. I am going to reciprocate because I do want to know. I don't actually know off the top of my head, but there's one thing I wanted to touch on before, because we've kind of nicely segued into it, which is developers who keep a thread of something bad running through it. And I just started playing, and probably have already started playing, Outer Worlds, because it was free at one point on the Epic Game Store. Epic are trying to get everyone over to their store by just endlessly giving away free games with their Fortnite V-Bucks that they have. So I thought, well, why not give it a go? It got so much hate. I mean, so much hate from so many people. And then so much war was going on. Twitter's like a pit full of tumors anyway. But it had so much of a war going on Twitter about it. I thought, well, I've got to see what the controversy is about. Honestly, I just thought it was like a sort of slightly aimless, clunky Fallout game is what it felt like. With slightly, it's like more cartoony, more stylized, and slightly smoother graphics. Still ran like crap, to be honest. I've got a 2080 Ti on this in a 5K by 2K, so 4K with a couple of bits on the edge monitor. I can't run it at really decent spec without loads of dropouts, so that pissed me off for a start because it's not even new. And yeah, I just can't click with it. It's trying to be quite funny and sort of send everything up, but I don't know. It's got all of the bugs and glitchiness and clunkiness you expect from their games, but for some reason lacks the charm. And it's like, you can't carry on a vein of bugginess unless you're also going to carry on the veins of things people like it's just a bit charmless for some reason.
You can forgive the bugginess if there's a world that you want to interact with, You know, a lot of times those kind of open world games, they're in your head as much as they're on the screen, and that game is far too contained. Like, you don't feel you're living in a universe. You feel you're playing a series of levels, and you're constrained in those levels to what you can do. And yeah, there's tons of dialogue, and some of it is interesting, but you're at the point where you might as well be reading a book, a linear book, rather than an open world game where you can be anyone or do anything. It's not. It doesn't gel correctly.
It's those. You're right that it feels like a bunch of little levels, and they are quite small as well by the standards that you'd be used to from another Bethesda game. Like they're actually little levels that you run around and reach the edge of very, very quickly. But you're still doing the same kind of clunky tasks, which I always thought were excused by the fact that, well, we've got to build this massive expanse of a wasteland or of Skyrim. So obviously it's going to be a bit clunky, but you forgive that. But once you put that into a small level, you start to think, well, why is it unpolished? Why have I walked into... And we were talking about this in the last episode, Techbeers episode 1, click here. We were talking about in the last episode...
Like and subscribe for more Techbeers.
Exactly. Subscribe and click the bell. We were talking about that before, how the open world is always a broken promise. And often it's populated with like the same house and you recognise the architecture of it. But it really is... silly. Like the second planet you go to looks the same. The city looks the same. The house that you're going outside the city looks the same. The missions are kind of the same. The side quests are really clunkily delivered to you. Like, oh, hey there. Or you walk past two people and they're going, God damn it, if you say that to me one more time. Well, if you just went and found so-and-so for me. Oh, hey there, traveler. No, can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Uninstall.
Yeah. It's a good one to get for free, I'll say that much.
Did you get very far?
I almost completed it, actually. I did play quite a lot. It was in a bit of a drought at the point when it came out, and it came out on Game Pass, so it was free, same as you, right? So I did play quite a lot of it. I didn't think I was that far in, but when I was speaking to some other people who completed it, turned out I was pretty much on the last level, so it turns out it's just not very big.
Yeah. What about you? What have you been playing at the moment?
So at the moment, it's Assassin's Creed Valhalla has just been released. So I played the introduction to that. I was a bit worried that it wasn't going to run very well from some of the reviews, but it seems to actually run really well. So I think you can't run it at all max settings, but there's as we were speaking about earlier, there's that little bit end of the curve where the diminishing returns are so extreme. Yet the performance hit is massive.
Ultra grass.
Exactly, ultra grass, ultra volumetric clouds. High volumetric clouds will be just fine because you never look at them anyway, and they're exactly the same in all the previews. So
shadow fade distance 1,000 miles.
No, totally. So no, that's been good. So I've been playing through that. It's a bit of a mixed bag, I'd say, so far. The last couple of Assassin's Creed games have been massive open world adventures, almost on the path to being, the new Skyrim almost. And this one does feel a bit more constrained, just from my immediate review. I'm not sure what it actually becomes, and maybe the world itself. Although Viking, Dark Ages Britain sounds fantastic on paper, so far it's actually been a little bit dull when compared to the Iliad where we were playing through before, with all the mysticism that comes with that. So I don't know, I'm still enjoying it, and I'll definitely play all the way through, but it hasn't had the immediate impact that Odyssey had on me. And then I was playing through or replaying some of Just Cause 3, not 4, which was the last one. 3, which was on the kind of tropical island that I much preferred to 4, just simply because I had the new graphics card and I wanted to see how it would work, because previously I could never get that locked 4K 60, but now easily, and my screen supports 120 hertz G-Sync, so I'm sitting around 100 FPS. And it's just a joy to behold, because that sandbox of Just Cause. I don't know, have you played Just Cause?
So I was going to interrupt after Assassin's Creed to say the same thing, but now I can say it about both, because you can cover both now. I've never played an Assassin's Creed game in anger. I played a little bit of the one that's in Old London Town. What was that one called? The Cockney one, which apparently is terrible.
Yeah, that's
and then I've never
Assassin's
played
Creed,
Just Cause. Sorry, I've never played Just Cause at all, and I don't even know what it's about. So yeah, tell me what Just Cause is about and what you like about it.
So Just Cause it's like a sandbox physics game now, where you play this kind of outrageous Latino guy who's just like indestructible dude. It's not silly like Saints Row, but it has kind of a little bit of hint of silliness about it. But you basically have to like take over the island. There's always some evil dictator that's taken over, and you can use any means of destruction that you can find. So, you know, if someone's a helicopter, you can use your wingsuit and get in the helicopter, then take out everything. But it's all in Just Cause 3 onwards. Everything's very much physics based. There's absolutely tons of things you can do that's silly. You have this kind of a hook thing. You can attach a cow to a gas canister, then shoot the gas canister and jettison the cattle up into space on the back of the gas canister, and just for fun, because it is fun to do that, right? But it was just previously, and especially on console, there just wasn't enough power to actually enact your dreams. But now when you go back, you do the stupidest things. Everything blows up so satisfyingly. I think some of the footage I think I took here might be playing over my dullard tones. You can see me blowing things up, and it is satisfying to do that. So, in some ways, I kind of wish I stopped immediately when Valhalla came out, but maybe I should go back and just play that, because I think actually that was more fun overall than Valhalla.
I think Assassin's Creed as well. So because I hadn't played any of them, and I tried a little bit of the Cockney Geezers one, which I can't remember what it's called.
Syndicate.
Syndicate, that's it. And the whole... If you haven't played any of them, it takes a little while for it to think of what's going on. It's like, hang on. So these people are outside of time and space sort of thing, and they're like, and everything's a bit like a simulation, or is it, or are they time traveling? Like, I just didn't know what was going on. I just sort of accepted it. I completely suspended disbelief and went, okay, we're time traveling and we're popping in and out of dimensions, fine, I'll just play. But it seems to be like a sort of GTA map type thing, and it immediately went to that thing that I said pisses me off, where it's like, you can go here and fight all the people, you can collect all the so-and-sos, I was like, oh god, do I really have to do 500 times? I have to go and collect all the pigeons. I mean, honestly, do I have to? And I didn't have to. I carried on playing the main mission, but for some reason it just didn't really hold my attention. I've been told now that it's a bad one, and there's better ones there. But what is going on with this weird time travel-y thing? Because I jumped in at game number 700 or whatever. And two, how does this work in that world of Valhalla? Does it function? What's the balance between main game and side quest?
So the time travel-y thing is basically from the original Assassin's Creed, where you were in this Amunis, and you could go into the memories of people from the past and relive their experiences. And inside of that, there was someone discovered there was this ancient order of assassins versus, I think it's the Templars. And they're both trying to fight over these orbs of power, which throughout history have been these things that have given people great power. So, it zooms into photos. I think in the first one, you see that like Henry VIII had an orb of power, and, whoever it is, Eisenhower has an orb of power. It's actually like they're deriving their power from that. Then it emerges that those orbs have come from aliens, basically, at the end. And that's kind of the premise. But then there's like this evil organization of Sergo Industries who's trying to get all of the orbs, I think. I don't know. The whole thing got very contrived very quickly, right? And that's actually the core of the problem of Assassin's Creed at the moment. They're trying to almost leave that behind, because they used to have extensive real world sections, and then you go back into the past. Whereas now they've got to the point where it's almost like an afterthought, and they're kind of trying to distance themselves, because they're making these amazing RPGs now. And to answer your second question, what happened there? Well, there was kind of a turning point that was in the game before Odyssey, which Origins, which is set in ancient Egypt. They basically reimagined Assassin's Creed as essentially an RPG, where you've actually got proper RPG elements. You're leveling up, you're picking up items, you're doing everything like an RPG. And it was way better. And they doubled down in Odyssey on that premise, and it basically became a different game. And it's a lot better that way. And Valhalla still carries on in that vein, but it still has that element of, as you say, Ubisoft collectathon. Get this is a base, do that. They're trying to get away from it still. You can see design choices are quite smart, but it's not quite there yet. But it could be.
Yeah, it did really confuse me, this whole I could tell it was quite contrived, because you were sort of playing an RPG, but then there's this whole thing of like digital stuff going on and synchronizing and all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, if you just took that out and had it as me being an assassin in this time period, it's interesting enough as it is. You don't need the sort of big overarching. I know why it's there, to join the series together, so it isn't just but I think in a way it would be more narratively interesting to be like, there's been part of this League of Assassins throughout everything in history, from the Vikings to Victorian London to Egypt. It's a bit like the notion of the Templar or the eternal, an eternal order, that sort of thing would be quite interesting. But yeah, evidently they did a big sci-fi contrivance around it, and that's why I'm really confused as to what's going on.
Yeah, some of the lore is actually quite good, I would say. Like, and it is quite interesting. They have drip fed some of that out over the series, but it is quite jarring as a player to feel like, I am this Viking dude, and then suddenly just not, and you're in like, Manhattan. It's like, why am I here suddenly? Like, I was playing, I was playing on a dragon boat a minute ago. Now I'm doing, some emails. It makes no sense.
Yeah, that's the modern Vikings malaise, isn't it? I should be on a dragon boat. Why am I doing emails? I feel like that every day.
Exactly.
Another one I've been playing recently was the new 2K games PGA Tour game.
This isn't something you should be admitting to on the internet.
It is quite boomer, isn't it?
I respect your decisions, but I question them.
We've got access to every game throughout the entirety of history, and there I am. It's PGA Tour 2021. But there is something about golf games, like ever since Jack Nicklaus Golf on the NES, which I used to call Jack Nicholson Golf because I always mixed the two up, which would be a great game in and of itself, I think. But ever since then, I've been really into golf games, and that was awful as well. So I don't know how I continue playing, but I still walk around singing the theme to Actua Golf 2, which I'm definitely cutting in here.
Actua,
everyone can listen to that absolute party banger. And I used to spend hours at night, like on PS1, just sort of. It's really relaxing and like meditative. There's this constant physical task, like you're trying to get better at timing the clicks and the swipes to get the ball in the hole. And there's always a new level of difficulty. You start off and it's like, I've just shot around 21 under par. I'm the king of golf. And then you take the difficulty up and it's like, I'll take off one assist. Oh, I'm crap again. And then you get back gradually. You get back up to being, you take off another assist. It's a real sort of challenge and reward thing for me. But yeah, I've just always been kind of into golf games, and in real life I can't do it at all. I nigh on broke the course record the only time I did a round of golf. I was literally tapping it in circles around the hole, not being able to put it down. I'm so bad.
Yeah. Well, have you ever played any multiplayer golf games?
No, I think I only ever played Actua 2 a lot as a single player, and everything else I've ever played across the years, I've played a little bit less than that one, but it's always been single player. I've not yet taken this online to play it yet. But yeah, no, I think I played the Wii one a few times at parties. It was Wii. Is it Wii Golf was one of them? I think that was a game, wasn't it?
The only reason I ask is because I have a bit of a MAME set up at my place, and I found loads of really, really good Neo Geo and old arcade golf games, which have actually quite a good party game thing, right? Because everyone can understand how to play it instantly. Everyone knows the rules. And the controls are simple, but actually you can take turns, and it's good laugh.
It's the easy to play, hard to master thing that gets me hooked on them, because you can start off and, like I said, put all the assists on. It tells you where to put it, tells you where to click the things, and then you're going to do it. All you have to do is just do what it says, and you'll put the ball down. But it's after, as you start to switch those off and you have to judge it yourself, it becomes a real challenge. And it's such a simple concept anyway as a game, ball into hole, that it's, you know, like you say, you can't really, so there's no contrivance there. I'm not going to travel back in time halfway through the hole and have to go and have a conversation with Imhotep, am I? I'm just going to...
More's the pity.
Hang on.
Don't give them
Assassin's
ideas.
Golf.
You know the next version's going to have that in there now.
Golf with Imhotep. Assassin's Golf has got to be a thing, surely.
Assassin's Golf.
This is Assassin's Golf.
Yeah. The golf balls.
But yeah, I just think they're really good. I think they're really enjoyable. You should see if you can get a cheap code on it, and we can blast a few rounds of 2K21.
I'm not sure I'm up for paying retail for this, but if it ends up on like Game Pass or something, then maybe I'll play with you there.
I'll tell you what, I'll keep an eye. I've got to wish list it, and I'll keep an eye out for when it goes cheap. Maybe I'll gift it to you one day. You'll be like, "What? Oh, someone's bought me a gift on Steam. Oh, it's golf."
The gift of stealing my time to play golf games.
Yes, but I just find it really meditative. I used to enjoy FIFA for that. I never really watched football that much apart from the World Cup and stuff. Like, that's kind of mandatory. But yeah, I really enjoyed the FIFA games back in the day. I can't play them online because, like most online games, you're playing against obsessively brilliant people who you just can't touch, you know. It doesn't make it fun at all, and there's never really good matchmaking on these things. You just get smashed. But I always like playing it with mates. Years and years ago, you were the first person I knew to really love me. No, you were the first person I knew to get a good projector. Oh, yeah. Which was, I think it was either an Epson TW3500 or 3600, one of the two.
That's a good question. I think they're both very similar models. I think
very
I do
similar,
have a 3500.
Yeah. I bet you can't see from there.
I'm pretty sure it's a 3500 I have, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, a few years ago on one of the Amazon Black Friday Prime type things, I bought a really cheap, actually natively 1080 projector, but it's very badly made. It's really noisy. I mean, they put the cheapest, noisiest fans in these things, but it was just to have something to watch stuff on. Like, anyway, this thing is really good for, you know, sitting out the way and just being able to play stuff on. But because I like to be a connoisseur of color and sound and all these sort of things, it is so bad. Like, the color it seems like less than 8-bit. Like, skin tones it will look like someone's got a patch of orange makeup on the front of their face and then yellow around the side.
What is it? What make is it?
Sorry?
What is it? What is this?
It's called Wimius. It's just a Chinese OEM rebranded, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it's so badly designed that it sucks in dust, and then it's not properly sealed around the screen, so it just spatters dust down the side of the screen. And it is a screen, so it's literally, you can slide out an LCD screen, like a phone screen that big, that then hits onto a mirror and has a massive light that bounces onto that.
Oh my God.
And that's how it projects. Yeah,
this sounds ghastly.
It's insane. What I'll do is, for this bit, I will dismantle it again because it needs cleaning, and I'll film it and we can cut it in here, and then when you watch this back you can see what I'm talking about. It's so weird. I've no idea why or how it is that way. So I've always had a terrible projector experience, and that was like 150 quid or 120 quid. So I went on eBay just thinking, this is too bad. I was sitting there playing Observer on it. I was like, this is an incredible game. This is an awful experience that I'm having visually. Like, I'm getting past it. And it's also locked to like 30p or what might even be 25p. It's so stuttery. It can't even do 60.
Oh, God.
It's atrocious, but it was a stopgap. So I went on eBay and typed in Epson TW, and I remembered roughly what yours was, 3,000 or something. Came up with a TW 3500 for 160 quid with like 1,000 hours on the bulb. And those bulbs usually last about 3,000, 4,000 hours or so. And that's not DLP. You don't have any of that horrible rainbow effect. Like, DLP is like a fundamentally broken thing, really, isn't it? It's like a compromise. So you don't have any of that. It's 1080, but it's you know, it's a good color picture, good color response. It doesn't have a lot of input lag. And I think that's an absolute bargain. It's like we were talking about last episode, the point where technology just becomes incredibly cheap for what it is, and you can actually grab some really good old generation stuff that still, you know, out punches the cheap ones nowadays.
100%. I think as well, because there's such a focus on characteristics like resolution now. You know, it's not 4K, it's not anything. Whereas the reality is that 1080p native has a place, a big place when talking about movies, especially, and older consoles and things. It's actually better to have it not upscaled and mangled into 4K. And as you say, there's actually it's still a good projector. I mean, like it's not the brightest projector, and it's not the most compact, I would say, but it puts a really nice image up. The colors are very natural. I mean, that was one of the things that drew me to it originally. And it's one of those things. Well, like I upgrade everything, but that's one of the things that I haven't touched in 10 years, and I don't really see any major need to either.
And that was like, what was it, 1,500 quid at launch or something? I think it was about £1,000 when you got it.
Yeah, about 1,100, I think, something like that, back in 2011.
So down to 160 quid second hand with a still functioning lamp. It's a crazy depreciation, but it's also a real bargain, I think. We'll see how it works when I get it. It's also got full lens shift, which is really hard to find nowadays, unless you want to pay £2,000 to £4,000.
Yeah.
It's actually got, for those who don't know Projectors, lens shift allows you to put it down out the way, and then it's got a tilt shift system, so the lens can just be moved across and up and project over there, but square. You don't have to do trapezoid adjustment, bending the screen or losing pixels.
It's incredible as well, that lens shift. So
it's huge.
Right now I have
like
a
90%
pretty good,
or something.
Yeah, exactly. I have a pretty straight on setup right now, but in the past, over the years, in renting houses, for many, many years, you'd never have a decent view. And I remember in the house I lived with my mate Daffy, we had the projector not just like off on one side; it was in the corner of the room.
I remember
projecting into the middle of the room with no geometry issues. It looked completely normal. Maybe a little bit slight because we had it so extreme, like a little bit of a curve on the top. But considering the positioning of it, it was incredible.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I remember it when you were in Holloway and having it like, I looked at the projector screen, I was like, is that doing that? Because it was all the way over in the corner, like on the side. It sort of didn't make sense to me. And then I realized, it's a tilt shift type system without the tilt, actually. It's just a shift system. But still, it's really, really, really smart. So I look forward to that. I'll report back in the next episode on how that's been. But yeah, it seems like it's quite a quiet fan, like 20 odd dB if you have it on the quiet mode, or it's going to be quiet in the absolute box of crap I've got at the moment anyway.
So weirdly, I actually have the opposite story to this, where
go for it.
I had this nice older projector, but I decided I wanted a crappy projector that I would use in a different use case, right? So I bought, I can't actually know what's the model. Let me look up the model number. But I basically bought a small projector that sits on its own stand. So it's the M1, that's what it is. Yeah, the M1 ViewSonic, M1 Plus, I think it's in fact. Mm-hmm. And it's like this. It's got one like design awards. It's one of those ones like you were mentioning where the resolution's actually lower internal resolution but supports higher resolutions. But its kind of party trick is it has an okay sound system built into it. It has Wi-Fi built into it, so you can cast straight to it. So what I've been using it for is in my bedroom, put it on the side table there, and it projects straight up and has quite good kind of digital correction stuff on it. That then you can just like play a film straight onto the ceiling, and you can just cast from Plex.
That's good.
And it has a speaker in it, has a battery in it that lasts for like a few hours.
Yeah.
So you can before you go to bed, watch a couple of episodes, and it's not the greatest quality, but it's not bad. And it was only, I think I got it on an Amazon warehouse deal. I think it was like around £200, which for a Pico projector of that caliber was a pretty good deal, because I think it's worth about 300 normally or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of weird. And then I've been using it in the bathroom as well. So it's sounding weirder and weirder the places I'm using it. But we have a bath in the bathroom, shockingly.
We
can put it above on the side there, and then fire it over the bath onto the wall, and then sit in the bath. And then one time I was watching a few episodes of Peep Show the other day, lying in the bath with it on the wall.
For I am a generous God. Oh yeah, bubble bath. and movie.
It's just something satisfying about doing things like that. You know, it's stupid. You don't really need to do it, but you just kind of think like, when I was a kid, this is the exact kind of stupid shit that I thought I'd be doing when I was an adult.
I've made it. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. M1 Plus has like the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth.
So it has this kind of hinge that lets you then uniquely put it down.
You can point it
you can fire it straight up any angle you want. And it's got its own battery that lasts quite a long time. And there's a Harman Kardon. I don't know. It's
Harman Kardon,
speaker in it, which I think. If I was them, I probably wouldn't put my name against because it's a total piece of rubbish.
They always suck.
It's weird as well because when you read all the Amazon reviews, everyone's like, the speaker could replace my entire entertainment system. It's just incredible just because they've been sold on the idea. And when I got it, I was like, are these guys for real?
Yeah.
Like, I think my phone sounds better half the time. It's not that bad, but it's not.
I do know what you mean.
Not something that you would think, wow, I'm going to use that for my main speaker now.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's really, really shocking how badly people review things.
Couldn't believe how great their sound was. It's like being at a concert.
And even like the picture quality, everyone's like, it's better than the best TV I've ever seen. It's just like, no, it's really not.
It's an 854x480 chip.
Yeah, and it took me like days of correcting the color to get it so it wasn't like Mr. Blobby every single person. It was
Oh yeah. I mean this Wimmy Us one I have was awful. Like it's one of those ones, typical like crap cheap things where you get a brightness adjustment right, and if you take it down below normal, it just starts to crush out the blacks. It just removes dynamic range. And if you push it up, it crushes the whites. So there is no brightness adjustment at all. If you're changing it, you're just destroying the image in a way that you might find aesthetically pleasing. And the color balance was so off by default. Like I do a lot of grading as part of my living. If I didn't do that, I don't think I could have made it even look passable. And the amount of time I spent tweaking each of the axes of the color thing, like comparing a chart on one screen against another, just to get it to look acceptable. And it still has this sort of bad makeup effect, as I call it, where you haven't got enough shades of skin tone, so it looks like people have got patches on their face.
Yeah. The patch,
I get that just because I've got rosy cheeks.
No, I'm totally with you on that one. It's like a little game, isn't it? Try and find the right settings. It's so frustrating though, because if you have bad hardware like that, it's not fun because you just feel a bit like I should have just spent more money. So I'm hopeful when you get this new one, this TW 3500, whatever it is, that does have some good colors going on. I think you'd be happy with that. It's 10-bit as well, so.
Yeah, which is amazing for the time to have a 10-bit pipeline in it. Processing
deep
wise,
color,
that's really cool.
they called it, which I think was probably the original branding of 10-bit was deep color.
So this home system stuff can really escalate from like you start off with like it's only home. I'll if you've got a studio, it's only my home system. I'll just use whatever I've got. So I had this little crappy Amazon that was 15 quid. I bought it as a laugh because I met this producer called Jeff Ellis who did Frank Ocean stuff and a load of other things that are really good. And he mixed on different speakers, really nice big PMC professionals. You've got PMCs there actually, haven't you? I think you've got TB2s, right?
Yeah, good memory. TB2 pluses, I think it's something like
the upgraded tweeter. Good choice. So he's mainly into PMCs, just moved into an amazing studio called, which used to be Ocean Way Studios, where he's got the full size, those amazing tower ones, the PMCs that look like jet engines. But he used to use these little speakers. Actually, I have one over here. I'm going to grab it. Which are like the most terrible Amazon one you can get, which are called File Home, as a reference because they sound terrible like normal people's speakers or like laptop speakers, and I had a terrible little amp to go with that. So I hooked that up with some free speakers that were on the roof of the studio here. There's tons of storage of old stuff. No one knows whose half of it is or how it got there. And a guy was moving out and he said, do you want to take these speakers? So I took the speakers. We had that for ages. Free speakers, £10 amp. So my girlfriend plugged into that amp with the aux cord, and one day it kept buzzing and she just kept turning up and up and it went on fire. It actually caught fire and stunk out the whole house. And at that point I was like, right, I've got to find a different system for this. I'll have to get her a Bluetooth connection so she doesn't set it on fire by buzzing it. But also that leads you to, well, then I'll well, I'll bring my spare speakers from here home, and everything gets upgraded bit by bit. It's so dangerous. Like, you start off thinking, I'd quite like to watch a movie here, and you end up, it's like, I've built a home cinema system. It gets so out of hand so fast.
Yeah, but it's, it's a hobby though, it's something to do in the background. It's never complete. It could always be better. It's good fun, I think. You can hit kind of a quality level, and then you start refining, I think, after you hit that quality level. And it's definitely one of my favorite pastimes.
Because you've got a few new... You haven't even got a new console. You're one of the people who ordered an Xbox and didn't get it. Well, there's two subjects. Off you go.
Thanks for reminding me. No, I had a bit of a saga. So I'm a big console fiend. I like to get all the latest gadgets and everything. And I quite triumphantly ordered an Xbox and a PS5 on Amazon. I thought, Amazon, that's a solid choice. Got in there early doors. And then come launch day, which I guess was last Tuesday now, I'm waiting and watching the thing, seeing when it's going to arrive. My mate, Daffy, he gets it, and he ordered just after me, in fact. He got his, he's going on how great it is. I'm thinking, yeah, great, wait for mine. Nothing appears. Cut to a few days later, I get a note from them saying, yeah, sorry, it's lost, nothing we can do, and the only option now is just to refund you. So I don't have the console. I can't find one because they're sold out, and someone nicked it, and that's just the resolution apparently of that saga. I think similar things have happened to you though recently, right?
Yeah, I think it's become a bit of a pandemic, whatever you call it. This whole theft of technology in the post. See, that's topical, isn't it? COVID. Technology theft.
It's just the same kind of impact on society.
Basically the same sort of thing. It's as lethal to the soul.
Where is it?
I don't have an Xbox.
10 million dead.
It's awful. I had the same thing happen with Alienware laptop, which is a work machine. Obviously I play games on it as well, but and that got... I asked them when they sent it, I said, we've had trouble with stuff just being stolen. Like, we're up some stairs, and being up some stairs is a bit much for most couriers. So a lot of stuff just doesn't get delivered anyway. And quite a fair bit of stuff just never turns up, especially from DHL and FedEx. A couple of them are really bad. But I asked Dell, I said, is the package anonymized? Like, is it going to say, this is a laptop on the outside? Because if it does, it won't turn up. And the person in the message was like, oh no, they won't know what it is. Anyway, so guy turns up at the door with a sob story for the person who was there, saying, I can't find it anywhere. I can't find it. I'm going to lose my job. I've only been here a week. By the way, what was in it? And she said, it was a laptop. And okay. And then just walked off. So I guess this is part of some scam where they kind of, hold back the package, find out if it's valuable and nick it, because it's worth more than a week's wages, $3,500 or whatever that laptop was. It never turned up. Another one turned up, and then it turned up with the packaging. On the packaging, it says Intel inside, and then on the front of it is a little packaging slip that says Alienware M17R3 with the specs on it. So, they're not helping themselves out. But this is happening everywhere now, this theft of packages thing. It's a bit sad, but yeah it's inconvenient, especially when it's a work thing. But yeah, constantly things get nicked. It used to be like, if you do it signed for, if you don't do it signed for, you're going to lose it. If you do it signed for, it'll be fine. But now you seem to lose it either way, 50% of the time, which is pretty sad.
No, it is ridiculous. I mean, it is. I guess on launch day, especially these consoles, there must have been tens of thousands of them going out as well. So it's pretty obvious what it is of that size on that exact day. And it's something you don't want to get upset about, because at the end of the day, it is just a toy in effect. Yes, but at the same time, it's just a bit disappointing when you kind of it doesn't come around that often, especially with consoles, right? You have cycle now is 7 or 8 years, and you kind of psych yourself up for it, and then it's gone. So I have to see what happens on Thursday, because that's the PS5 launch day. So I've got that one coming from Amazon as well, maybe.
Oh God!
God knows what's going to happen. Yeah.
I think the Amazon hiring practices, well, I mean, they're known for being terrible to work for. And when they hire couriers, they pretty much outsource everything, don't they? So they'll just go, anyone, you've got a van? That's great. Here you go. Here's some packages.
It's fully democratized now. So it's like a gig economy thing where you sign on the app and then you go over to the depot, pick as many parcels as you can, log them, then take them, and then you get paid per parcel. Yeah. So especially on high volume days and times around Q4, they have any old idiot coming in and doing it, and clearly that system isn't foolproof because everything's getting nicked.
Well, this Dell one also, they used a separate, they contracted out a separate logistics company to handle the logistics, and then DHL just deliver it at the end, wherein the person nicks it. So there's all sorts of layers of failure going on there. But yeah, you're right. It's like, it's not something to harp on about too much. But it did take me a month and a half from order to get it, which is not really that bad. It's just a bit of a shame, isn't it?
It's a long time for sure. I think it's at the moment, especially in some ways, it's like a golden age for tech releases. We've had all the new graphics cards, new AMD CPUs, other their graphics cards, the new consoles, phones, everything coming out. But equally, presumably because of the pandemic, we're getting like absolutely no volume on these things, and at the same time, because everyone's stuck in their houses, everyone wants these things. So insane demand going through, and it's a recipe for disaster for everyone.
What was I going to say? Oh, something you just said then made me think of something interesting. You said, the console cycle is like 7 or 8 years or what have you. And I was thinking in my tiny and addled brain that if it becomes that long, I was thinking maybe eventually they'll actually do consoles with upgradable parts. And then I thought, but that'll just be a PC, won't it? Like, I do wonder if you'll get like... because PlayStation 5 has that M.2 SSD slot, right? But it's disabled at launch. And they're saying, we're going to work out what sort of spec of SSD will work with the geometry streaming and that kind of thing, what's fast enough and how we can integrate it. But for now, it's just a dead slot. And we've always had expansion I/O ports on consoles, like the PlayStation 1 had that, little chip slot in one. Mega Drive famously had the other way around. It had the card edge in the console that wasn't used for anything for years until Mega CD came along, I think, in the West. And I was just wondering if we might see a bit of a return to that, where they put in an expansion PCIe bus so that even 5 years down the line, they can go, well, here you go, here's your power booster, like another GPU or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know whether we go down the full, adding parts to things. On the Xbox Series X, there is already actually a kind of custom-made M2 slot, like you described for the PS5, but it does already exist on the back, and I think Seagate has the contract, and you can buy like the extra, whatever it is, terabyte of storage to put in the back.
That's the proprietary one, isn't it?
I think, but I think that's more of a cash grab than an upgrade path. They know that the games are only going to get bigger. 200 gig of games are going to come standard, and everyone's going to have to spend that extra half the price of the console on the expansion. But in terms of the consoles themselves, there's very clearly, after they made the move away from custom architectures, like the Power PC architecture of like the GameCube and the Cell architecture of the PS3, and moved towards more traditional x86 for the CPUs, and then AMD just almost semi-standard graphics hardware. They now just become a continuation, and you've seen that very clearly, the back compat between PS4, PS5, One and X, Series X is perfect already out the box with minimal changes, because they are just an evolution. And it probably will be a point where they realise that just like mobile phones have every year a new version, they flirted with it with the PS4 Pro and the One X, that they probably can increase the cycle even more, maybe add 4 consoles generation, but it erodes that core value proposition of a console that is a thing to program for, and then it creates issues down the line for generational leaps.
Because I've started using Unreal like a year and a half ago, semi-seriously getting into it. I was watching their regular videos recently, and one of them was talking about RTX and ray tracing and that sort of thing, and how like that it's going to work on consoles. But then I did a bit more research on it, and someone else was already saying, I don't know who develops Devil May Cry, but whoever it is, that makes sense. Yeah, they said that ray tracing will be on the Xbox. I've forgotten the names of them. The big Xbox will have it, and the little white one,
Series S and Series X.
Yeah, that's it. So there's already a split happening in what things can do, and they're already having to do 2 optimizations on the Microsoft path.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm actually very worried about that whole idea that they split it from the off. One of the biggest problems they had with the Xbox One was being weighed down by the monstrosity they originally created and having to make sure all the games could run on that, which maybe they couldn't, which was kind of penalizing all the early adopters and people who didn't have the money to stump up for the new one, because you had this kind of broken, half-assed version. And with the S, it's easy to say you can just drop the resolution, but ultimately, the higher power should actually create better experiences, and to be stopped creating those experiences by having to program for a lesser machine is going back to what I was saying. It's eroding the whole idea of the console. It's just becoming a PC platform.
Yeah, I mean that's the attraction of console, has always been minimal outlay, and it's all just going to work because everyone's making everything for that one platform, isn't it? Whereas PC, the only way to get a seamless experience on PC was buy the top end thing.
Yeah.
And keep upgrading it, and that's really expensive. So, you either do it because you're an enthusiast like you do,
exactly,
or you do
it's a hobby.
And I only do it because I use it for work. If I didn't have a work machine, I probably wouldn't spend that money on it. So it's a tough proposition to sell. Like, you must spend £1,000 on a GPU to keep up. And that was always the attraction of the console. It's like the democratization of gaming. But if you're, like you say, it's already got to the point where you're developing for PC. If you're developing for PC and multiple consoles, you're already sort of grading what can and can't do what, and what you switch on and off, and what level of samples you use for ray tracing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If you then have multiple consoles within each console family, it's making the development task massive. Optimization's hard enough as it is. It's like an entire discipline in itself. So, it's the same people are probably going to have to do an extra level of it. We're going to do the 1440p pass without our ray tracing for the Xbox One S.
We're already seeing that some of the S games are coming out at 1080p to hit the 60 FPS targets. So it's already. Well, it wasn't the new games necessarily. It's the back compat with Series X hasn't hit those targets. I think it was Forza Horizon that was shown as 1080p when they said 1440p would always be the target. So, that's not even a new game. So that's already concerned. The one area I do think, though, where we're going to see it across the board gains is in the CPU, because the original consoles had incredibly poor CPUs. They were like ultra mobile CPUs used in them in ultrabooks, things like that. They weren't designed really for heavy tasks, whereas now they've got the Zen 2 in there, and I think that's going to be the biggest leap for games, actually, because now that's the baseline. It's basically like a 3500X or whatever the equivalent CPU is, and that's huge. I mean, the jump is massive. I've never seen a CPU in a console like that before. And I'm hopeful, because this thing is octa-core, 8 cores in every single console now, all both the same on both consoles pretty much, that I think now anyone on PC who doesn't have that is in trouble, actually, because they're going to match the AI and destructibility and physics and everything else to that standard, which I'm excited about. I think that's great, because we've been stuck for ages on those shit cores.
Yeah, it's. I suppose it's sort of in the hands of developers more than anything else, isn't it? Like, it's notoriously difficult as a small developer to do console anyway. Like, people do, but you'll notice often that they'll release a game on PC that will get some traction, and then after that, it gets converted from one of the main engines, Unity or Unreal, into the consoles, which seems to usually be because they get some kind of help from one of the platforms, to optimize it for console, because you can't do that until you've got a development console to use. You can't just guess. You have to use the platform in order to do it, and it's got to be adding more cost to people's developments, having more and more versions of consoles with more and more gradations. It's like now we're starting to see that PC settings thing bleed into consoles. Like PS5 has performance mode, and there's another mode in there. I can't remember what it's called.
Probably quality. It's quite common actually. It has been since the Pro and One X came out to have those decisions. Do you want to aim for 4K or do you want to aim for 60 FPS at 1080p? And actually, now we've seen with the new consoles coming out, the games that really embrace that concept are now ready immediately to work better on the new consoles, because without any optimization, if they have the option in there to do both or enable both, they can instantly hit a 60 FPS 4K target, or at least people can test it out and find out if it does, without having to release patches backwards. So I think moving forwards, because they know now it's almost definite we'll have a mid-generation refresh of these two new consoles, to leave those options in there, or at least just hide them, because when they do come out they can just enable them, and then not have to do a whole round of proper patching again, which I think is really good, because on PC you go back and play old classics and they can get transformed when you've got a new graphics card. It makes the whole experience better.
People have always built PC development. They've always built in a mode that you basically can't run on your current card, haven't they?
Exactly.
It's always like Ultra Max Nightmare Terror mode in 8K. And now, was it Microsoft Flight Simulator is known for that already,
that is
isn't it?
basically
Like nothing
made for
can
some
run
future HAL 3000 PC or something. It doesn't run at all on any computer. I think also, what's that medieval game made with the CryEngine?
Kingdom Come Deliverance.
Kingdom Come Deliverance. I booted that up the other day because it got the 3080, and I thought, time to bring it to its knees. When you select the options in the menu for like Ultra or whatever, it comes up with a warning saying this is intended for future hardware. I'm like, yes, and I have the future hardware. But no, you still can't run. I still had to drop it down to like high or something, or medium. Just about got away with just under 60 FPS at 4K. But still, it was reassuring that we're almost getting there.
Dave, do the Techbeers viewers get an iPhone 12 or not? You got a 12 Pro Max, didn't you? I've got a 6S. That's correct. I literally live in the past. And it's been repaired. Screen once, battery twice. Nothing works on it. Charging port's broke. 3.5mm port's broke. A fingerprint scanner's broke. So I need a new phone. iPhone 12. Go.
No. It is a good phone.
Okay.
It's probably the best phone you can buy, right? But should you buy it if you had anything above than the 6S? Probably not. So should you buy an iPhone 12 Pro? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But I moved from the 11 Pro Max, and in some ways it's exactly the same. The experience feels exactly the same. But other ways, in some ways it's kind of worse. I mean, it's quite a bulky thing. Just looking at it now, it's very heavy. I mean, it's like really heavy. It feels like someone's like chipped off a piece of an iPad and handed it to you and gone, there you go. Which is nice because I like a big phone and I like the iPad. But at the same time, like we're really departing from that, so thin you could snap it by accident. We've like gone all the way to the other end. And it has 5G, and I really like connectivity. So like 5G is a major draw for me.
You speed tested it, didn't you? The 5G.
If I sold you my 11 Pro Max, which I can't because I have to return it to get the trade in for this one, you would be very happy, and I think I would be a bit sad because I think like you would have had an amazing deal compared to the ridiculous price I paid for this.
Yeah. What, you speed tested the 5G though, didn't you? What was different between the two phones?
You know what? I haven't. Oh no, it wasn't the 5G. So what I speed tested was just on my home Wi-Fi. I have 500 megabit Virgin service, and on my iPhone, my expectation was never high anyway, but it ran at about 300 megabit. But on my new phone, it comes through at the full 500 megabit. So like the Wi-Fi chipset in there or something must be updated to be just be able to take that kind of throughput, which is quite nice. It shows there is an actual improvement.
Yeah, and even though you're never going to use it for big downloading, likely, it's one of those things that just improves its quality of life, isn't it? Usability, everything loads quickly. You'd have less
responsiveness,
less delay.
It's imperceptible probably in most use cases, but knowing it's there, it's just nicer. So are you thinking of upgrading your phone?
See, I'm in a sort of quandary at the moment. I've been looking a lot at all the different Android options, and I sort of can't decide. I've been iOS for ages, and obviously that's that easy use thing, so I can just when I get a new iPhone, I just go download the backup and leave it plugged in, and it's just my iPhone again as soon as you get back. I do like that. There's certain applications I use on it that have never been ported to Android at all, which I definitely miss. There's only a few of them, but they are ones I use quite regularly in a professional capacity, so that's frustrating. I don't use a phone a lot because I'm always by quite fast internet. There's computers everywhere, so I don't particularly want the hottest model. And that's the other thing that puts me off. That's the only thing that puts me off Apple is the price has gone up so much since I got a 6S. I mean, now I think 12 Pro Maxes are like 70 odd quid a month contracts for 2 years with a decent package, whereas Huawei and Samsung and so on, you can get reasonbly good phones for 20-30 quid.
It's probably best off not getting caught in like a carrier's package anyway, getting a SIM only deal, and then buying the phone direct, and you can buy the phones direct on 0% finance anyway, like you were doing it via the carrier. So I think that's the best way. But yeah, there are some interesting Android phones though. I've got to admit, like there's been such low innovation coming out of Apple for the last 3 generations. So since the 10S, I think it was, the 10S all the way through to 12 Pro, it's pretty much the same phone over and over again. Whereas you've got like that LG, have you seen that one with that swivels? The whole top of the phone, you've got then 2 screens. You got the Fold from Samsung, which is, it's not perfect, but it's cool. I mean, it's intriguing. I like where they're going with it. Whereas, the Apple stuff, it's a bit like taking the piss a bit now. They just rounded off the corners and, finally added 5G, which has been out for like 2 years in other makers.
I mean, it's always been an Apple thing, though, hasn't it? Like selling relatively old specs in a walled garden software environment and a limited hardware environment, simplified in order to get you to pay lots of money for it. Like on the professional hardware side, it's been like that for a long time. I mean, you couldn't really get a decent spec Mac Pro that would run the professional software that I use very quickly at all, because so much it was either CUDA based or wanted lots of CPU power, and it was really hard to get a high-spec Mac. I mean, they've been touting that M1 chip recently, haven't they? Which is, as far as I understand it, that's like an iPad setup, like SoC, system on a chip, in their computers now, right? And they're touting all these numbers like 17 times faster and lots of stars, unspecific tasks compared to this, that sort of thing. But I think that it seems like they're doing the same thing again. It's like another way to sell this particular proprietary technology in an even shinier box for even more profit. But yeah, I'm yet to see. I'm yet to see anything recent. It's a recent innovation of theirs that really attracts me to buy any product. So I've got no Apple computers anymore, and I haven't had for, I don't know, coming on a decade, if not more. And I've always been Apple phone, but I'm about to jump ship as well, probably because of cost.
Well, that probably is, though. The Apple Silicon is probably the one thing that would keep you, or should keep you with Apple, though, because if in the phone space, it is still the most powerful CPUs. It's just there's a very limited use case for that extra power. So whilst they're absolutely killing it, like, the basic 80% of apps or app time usage of apps is completely useless to have essentially a whole laptop in your hand when all you're doing is writing a message to someone. But at the same time, it's nice to know that you're getting that sort of quality. I think that M1 thing is a good idea from them. To be honest, I think that unifying all that stuff could have massive benefits down the line, but it's going to be a long while, I think, before you really see the benefit of it. I think the transition period, well, it's just a guess at this point, but I think it's going to be a bit messier than they're letting on. I mean, you as a professional would never dare, I'm just putting words in your mouth now, I guess you wouldn't dare go on a first-gen transition
position, because it'd be just way too risky if the apps didn't work or the plugin or whatever you were adding in just wasn't available, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I'm like most people who are using things in a professional context. I don't update mid-project, and I'm almost always mid-project. So you have to find these little patches where you're not doing anything. Then you can update stuff, and inevitably something goes wrong. Something, no matter how small, that might, in a quality of life context, where you're trying to get something done quickly on a turnaround, be interminably irritating. So you can't risk it. I haven't used Apple for professional stuff for over a decade now, mainly because of that. I like the fact that on a Windows PC, I can take an old audio plugin I used when I was 17, drop it into the folder, and it just works. I don't have to do anything else. Don't have to fool around with it. Apple are constantly discontinuing things, like genuinely shutting off professional things with almost no notice, and people whose whole businesses are all like Xsan was a form of network. It was a networking system used by people who used Final Cut 7, I think it was, and all that was just axed with no notice. I mean, really screwed some people over. I just don't trust that kind of stuff. And already the emails have been flooding in from big developers. It's always the same thing. It's great. I laugh at it because I don't use Apple stuff. It's like, here we go again. Apple are updating that you get the big press conference keynote, then the next week, all your professional software that you have, they email you, if you're using Apple, don't update the OS, please. You have to wait for us to do our update. So everything I own has been sending these things. Well, not everything, but a lot of stuff has been sending through these mails saying, please don't update, please wait for our notice. So, you can't update for years anyway, because everyone has to catch up and recode everything. And no, I wouldn't touch it at the moment. I don't believe those things where they give these mad numbers like 15 times faster. It's all very gerrymandered things.
Oh yeah, totally. That's, in some ways that's why I really like statistics, because people always want to measure everything these days. Everything has to be smart. Everything has to be whatever. I just think, yeah, sure, because it doesn't matter what stat I need, I can always create it. There's always some way of finding, cherry picking at the very basic level. I can find you the evidence you need to prove what I want. It's and with stuff like that, they don't have no context. Of course they're going to just say, well, it's 7 times more efficient. You have to take it their word, right? It's just nonsense.
I think one of them said, than the most popular Windows laptop, which
the
just
average
contains
Windows
no
computer
information.
Or something. Like
what
that's
does that
the thing.
mean?
First you got to prove statistically they picked the wrong average Windows computer from whatever time frame. Then you've got to find out the exact test and use case. It's just they know that you can't disprove it, so they just have to go, okay,
words.
7 times
just
is
words
better.
in a row. Yeah. But yeah, you're quite right. In conclusion, I there's no way I'm going to switch to it. I just found it kind of interesting that they're finding yet another way to close down things even more, because now, developers are going to need access to, I would guess, different code libraries and that kind of thing for their own, unless they want to run through that Rosetta translation all the time. It seems to, and it's really random as well. Some stuff just works already. They've tested and it works fine. Some people are like, no, please don't update or it won't work. I just can't be dealing with that. Windows, for all its flaws, and Windows 10 occasionally breaking everything and then having to undo it. If you stay on the long release cycle, which you can set in your update settings, it doesn't let me down that much. And I can use the internal backup system, keep a backup drive, and when it does go wrong, I just restore it and carry on like I was working last week. So, it seems like the professional choice still for me. But
they're moving towards that lockdown environment even further, right? Because you think about it right now, the iPad is pretty much the primary platform at this point. If everything's being programmed for that restricted instruction set, and all those apps will work, so that whole app store presumably will be available on the other device. And then you've got this kind of weird situation where if the CPUs merge at some point, what is the difference between the iPad that doesn't have a keyboard attached to the bottom of it? You're just moving the gubbins of the computer behind the screen or under the keyboard, and you can buy a keyboard for the iPad. So you really blurred the lines about what the devices are.
And the Alienware I used to use was, what year was that one? It's an old one, 2013 or something. That had a 4K touchscreen in it, which isn't the best experience in Windows because it's not a touch operating system really, and every time they tried to do it they've made a complete mess of it, but you can use it, and it does, it relieves RSI, which I get occasionally depending how hard I'm working on stuff, and Sorry?
Me too. I've recently discovered.
Yeah. We can talk about that. Actually, we've got loads of RSI release stuff here. I can suggest to you, but so it made me think, like, what's the point? I mean, about 6 years I've been using a 4K touchscreen laptop, and just now Apple are releasing the iPad with no touchscreen and a keyboard attached. It just seems odd, this whole thing of like, why won't they just make a touchscreen laptop? Why not make a touchscreen iMac that sits on the desk at a 30-degree angle? All these things have existed for so long. That would be innovation again, which is what they used to be known for. And now it's just re-release the same thing, make it thinner, add some battery life, Yeah. It's a bit of a shame that thing they were known for, which I still respected, even when I didn't use their products, of innovating. Because everyone copies them as well. Like, as soon as Apple got rid of the 3.5mm jack plug, that was it. Everyone else is getting rid of the 3.5mm jack. As soon as Apple did the horrible cutout on the screen, which I always despised.
Yeah.
Sorry?
That was quite shocking, actually, when that happened. Everyone dumped on them and thought, they were going to stand up to them. But then they said, that's the design now, we're just going to do it. Everyone copied it, piled in. It was... Yeah, I think that really set the tone then, really, didn't it? Like, they are setting the pace for those kind of weird design choices, not necessarily, the standardization of design choices, comes out of them.
There's no resistance to it. Where's the resistance, Like, for saying, no, we want...
Well, it's not really here, because I just spent £1 million on this iPhone 12, so I think I'm part of the problem. Yeah.
You're part of the problem.
But if we want to talk about innovation... I think it's probably valid to give our good friend Chris a shout out for being a brave person and buying the new Pi 400.
Oh, yeah.
Which, now that's an innovation. They got the Pi, they got the Pi keyboard, they put the Pi keyboard and the Pi together, and then just put 400 on the end. And for some reason, we actually all agree that it's probably one of the best things to come out of computing in a long time.
Definitely. I mean, it's so reminiscent of the micro period, isn't it? Which was slightly before our time, technically, because they were all sort of obsolete. But because I was very poor when I was a kid, I had one in about 1991, a Spectrum, ZX Spectrum Plus 2.
I've still got my Spectrum here, actually. I've got it in the room with me.
Wicked. Yeah, I can still program a bit of Plus 3 Basic, because that was 12 years old. That was my first.
I've got a Plus 2 as well. I've literally got my childhood Plus 2 in the...
I used to love reverse engineering it and stuff, and that I never really did that much more after I was about sort of 13, 14, and then recently all of that knowledge, even though it's C++ based in Unreal, like the notion of variable setting and all that sort of thing has has helped me quite a bit, oddly enough. So that the same thing with the Pi 400, having that simple format where someone can just plug it into the monitor and go. I think is amazing. Like if there's one thing people need to be learning now in school and so on, it's some form of code, being able to talk to computers and understand how computers work. And it's lovely to see that resurgence of something that sort of died before we were, adult and able to think about computers and games and that sort of thing properly, has now come back in a new form. And it's so accessibly cheap that it should be available worldwide. It'll be more of an outlay in other countries, but it's still accessible to a lot more people, which is a great thing.
100%. There's something very alluring about the form factor. I think it's a great company as well. Like the whole ethos of it is born out of exactly what you're describing, right? To bring back that home computing passion, to inspire people, make those bedroom coders, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whether it's hitting all those targets, I don't know, but it's definitely an inspirational story, and they've definitely had masses of success in selling these things. I mean, way more than I think anyone would have predicted at the start. It was a cool project, but now it's like a worldwide icon. It created a whole industry in microcomputing again.
They have the store here in Cambridge where I live. It's I've been into it once, but I don't know any
brick and mortar store for the Raspberry Pi.
Actual store in the most expensive shopping centre in Cambridge as well. Yeah,
seems
in the Grand Arcade, or Grand Arcade, as everyone likes to call it. The Grand Arcade. They have a real. So it's like an Apple store. In fact, it's opposite the Apple store upstairs, and you can go in and play around with them and chat to people.
That's got to be some sort of like non-profit outreach store or something. They can't be really spending the money on that.
Yeah, I'd guess so. Well, it's Cambridge, so I'd have thought that maybe, I mean, everyone's here now. Samsung have an AI center, Arm are here, Apple are here, Google. Apple are building a whole building.
I know, it just seems an excessive expenditure for something that's kind of born of the internet. But
I just want. Well,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to go to this store now. You've told me it exists. I will be going there as soon as we can go back into shops. But
we'll do a Techbeers outing. Yeah, we can all buy Pi 400s and not know what to do with them.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? Our friend Chris bought one. It looks really cool, and I immediately thought, I really want one of these now. But it's like I know the half life of this thing is going to be me getting it, me plugging it in, me going, a computer, then putting it somewhere because I already have a computer.
Well, he must be able to code. I've never asked him, but he must know 20 languages.
It's when you find out about Rosetta Stone for the first time and you thought, I'm going to learn Spanish. I don't know if I'm going to really learn some sort of Fortran or something on a Pi 400.
Good choice. I listened to a really good podcast about that. I just can't remember what it was called, but there's a computing history one on the Apple podcast, which is great. That goes through the whole history of all of that stuff. It's fascinating how computers existed as paper and metal things before they were even electronic, like the early punch card systems where you'd put a pole in and it would go through the hole's edges on a card, and you'd lift the pole up and everything where they'd punched a hole where it said A would pull up all the ones that had A in them. That's crazy.
Isn't the word computer, it's a job description of someone who inputs data before the actual electronic computer existed. So it's like you are a computer was a job back in whatever it was, pre-Babbage or whatever. It was an actual role. It wasn't like a device. I think it's been some good to catch up on things. I think at the moment there's a hell of a lot going on in the tech scene. So I'm no doubt in the next week or so we'll have even more to chat about.
We'll have even more botched launches where you can't actually order things to complain about.
How the PS5 went missing.
Yeah, exactly. Don't. It's going to happen. And my projector's going to go missing, isn't it, as well? Why did I say it?
Don't worry.
Anyway, if anyone's made it this far, well done. Please subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell so you know when we upload another episode of Techbeers. Have a good one, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks.